Well, hello there. Kumusta po kayo? And how are you? And thanks for tuning in to another edition of Paul de Guzman Presents Art. So I brought you here to the South Granville area of Vancouver, which is of course built on the ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, to have a look at the work of Les Ramsay here at the Robert Kardosh Gallery on South Granville. So the artist, he's going to be showing some paintings, some sculptures, and needlepoint. So I hope you can join me and I hope you enjoy the video. And here we go. So I just want to mention that the Marion Scott Gallery Kardosh project is going to be, or has been renamed to the Robert Kardosh Gallery. And they're going to have their signage up soon. But, we just have to wait until they get their signage up. And we're just going to go inside the gallery right now to have a look at Les Ramsay's work called Velvet Morning Light up until June 15th. So we're just going to go inside. And we're just going to go and have a look at the first painting, which is near the window. There we go. And it's called Velvet Morning Light, not because of that painting, but because of this other painting that I'm going to be showing you over here. About a week ago, I went to see the show. And as is my sort of like mode of operation, I tend to sort of go and have a look at the show first. And then I ponder it, and then I go and sort of like do additional research on the internet. And Les Ramsay is an artist that I'm familiar with. So to give you a bit of an overview in terms of where he's from, he's actually from Vancouver. And there was an article that I read that he used to actually go skateboarding in White Rock, where I guess he grew up there. And for his Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, he got it at the Emily Carr University of Art and Design. And then after that, he pursued his Master's of Fine Arts degree at Concordia University in Montreal. I kind of lost touch with him and his work when he moved over to Montreal. But around 2018, 2019, just before the pandemic, he and his partner wife, Colleen Heslin, who is also another painter of note, decided to actually move back to British Columbia, and now they're living in Powell River. So to those of you who don't know where Powell River is, it's a small coastal community on the Sunshine Coast, which is like if you take Vancouver and then you drive up the coast, you will end up at Powell River. It's, let's see now, northwest of Vancouver. And it's not a big city, it's a small city, it's a small community actually. But I know a lot of artists are actually going and moving to different parts of British Columbia just because of the livability or the lack of livability here in Vancouver. I've known artists who've moved to Powell River, to Gibsons, to Courtenay, to Nanaimo, and many, many other areas. And when I was looking at these paintings, and these are the paintings that he's doing right now, the first thing that came to mind is, when I first saw them anyways, I thought, I wonder if he was composing these on a computer. You know, when you have these paint programs called Microsoft Paint, and then you would paint on your on the screen and stuff, and then you would actually sort of render them in paint after you're done with the compositions, because there's a certain sort of like rawness to the drawings. They almost feel like something else happened. They've been sort of like, this is a second generation of the creative process. And when I happened upon one of the articles that I read about the artist, it did confirm that he used it on iPad to actually compose most, if not all of these compositions. Now that was a few years ago, I think. I think now he's actually more relying on sort of like an intuitive approach to painting, because when I was watching one of the videos that he did for with a Gravity Pope, which is a clothing outlet. He mentioned that he's actually doing more intuition rather than planning things out on a computer. The one thing that you may want to know about rendering things on a computer is that the computer is one of those things that's actually quite immediate. It's very fast, it renders things really quickly, but when you actually paint them, painting is actually a slow process. So, because he's a multimedia artist who deals with painting, sculpture, as well as needlepoint, especially needlepoint, it kind of makes me wonder about the slow process that he wants to sort of like impart when he's making art. He wants to kind of like slowing it down. And in a way, when you sort of like look at the decision to actually leave Vancouver, which is a fairly cosmopolitan place, to live in a quieter community of Powell River, that is almost like a slowing down of a lifestyle, you know? So a lot of the things that he's kind of like doing with his art tends to sort of like mimic the life that he's living there. It's a coastal town near the sea, and life is pretty slow. And so when you look at some of the objects here, like for example, these folk art inspired sculptures that you see here, which he kind of refers to as like they're fishes. They're kind of like fish decoys, which is kind of like a folk art trope that was very popular around the 19th century. When you go to antique shops, you're probably going to go and find, you know, wooden ducks and fishing lures and fake fish as well. And I think, even though these are actually covered in a lot of like paint, very thick gooey paint, I think these are actually probably retrieved driftwood from the coastal areas of Powell River. And we're gonna go here and have a look at another one of these folk art inspired sculptures, which I find really, really cool. And I'm not gonna say cute, but there is a cutesy element to them because they're very kind of like, the colors are very bubblegummy type, and there's this sense of whimsy about them. And when you look at this particular sculpture, there's also this sort of like filled in glove that's kind of like acting as some sort of stabilizing element for this entire sculpture. There's actually two of them. There's another one on the other side. And these are actual gloves, actually, because like I was looking at them very carefully, and they're made of they are textiles. So it's probably something that he probably retrieved from like a thrift store or something like that. And these fishes actually have these eyes as well. I wonder if they're like plastic or glass. And I'm gonna show you another one of the paintings. And when I look at the paintings, I don't want to reference sort of like art historical tropes, but there's this sense of this American artist that comes to mind. His name is Donald Batchelor. I will put a little bit of a blurb down in the bottom of the screen in terms of who he is, but he's an American artist, and a lot of things that he does seems to be quite emblematic of his experiences. They kind of deal with symbols, you know, and symbols of life, symbols of where he's living, symbols of his current situation in the world. You know, when you look at this, there's these wheels that tend to sort of like perhaps signify white settler colonial type of histories with wagon wheels. And it's also kind of interesting to say that he is also of Métis background. And for those of you who don't know, Métis is pretty much it's an indigenous culture wherein the parentage is both First Nations and European settler. So there's a population of Métis here in Canada that stems from the west coast of British Columbia right all the way to Saskatchewan and Manitoba in the prairies. Now we're just going to approach the needlework pieces that he's made, And I really like these, like, I mean, these are really, really compelling. They almost look like, this particular one reminds me a bit of a Carol Appel painting, who is an artist, who's a Dutch artist from the 50s. And I'll put a little blurb on who Carol Appel is in the very, very bottom of the screen. But I just wanted to share a story with you when I was younger in terms of needlepoint, because when I first arrived in Canada, I was staying with my brother's family, and the grandmother was heavily into needlepoint. And when I arrived, I missed the school year, so I was actually hanging around with the grandmother a lot. So she and I would actually sort of like go and do needlepoint together. And the one thing that you have to note about needlepoint is that the back is really difficult to make as good as the front. And because the needlepoint is actually a very frontal image, especially with these, so you never see the back. But it takes great skill to actually make the back look as good as the front. Now, these are smaller pieces, and I've seen some on Instagram. They're actually sort of like bigger pieces, but it takes a long time to actually do needlepoint. So these are really good examples. And it takes hours to do them because they're very meticulous. And it's also very slow. Remember when I was mentioning something about the slowness aspect of a lot of the works that he does? It's almost like he's dealing with this aspect of just wanting to slow down and just contemplate things and see how they feel when he's actually rendering them on canvas or on any medium that he particularly feels appropriate. So the show is on until June 15th, so you have about a week. But of course, YouTube is a record of it, so if you have access to the internet, you can always sort of view this at your leisure. And I hope you enjoyed that tour. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Also, you can share it on your social media channels if you wish. Also, I'm going to be putting in some information in the description area down there. So please refer to that regarding the gallery, the times that they're open, and their website, and any other information that I can share. And also consider subscribing to the channel. It's all free for you to enjoy. So, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. And as always, thank you, and I hope art informs your life. You have a great day.